books to his name, in addition to many book chapters, journal papers, and conference proceedings, plus several patents. So Dr. Ravi is active in the PHM Society and within various SAE technical committees dealing with AI, digital transformation, prognostics and health management, and electric propulsion. He's currently serving as editor-in-chief of the SAE International Aerospace Journal and is part of the editorial board of 2 other journals. With that, Dr. Ravi, handing it over to you. Dr. Ravi, handing it over to you.
Hey, thanks, Satish. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Can you hear me? I guess you said yes, so you should be able to hear me.
Yes, had your video all clear, Dr. Ravi.
Okay, great. All right, I don't have too much time. The one good thing is I heard Dr. Omkar. He basically stole my thunder. So essentially what I'll be saying is repeating what he told you. And I too agree that it's unfortunate that they don't teach standards in school, in college. They should as part of the engineering curriculum, but we'll get to that later. All right. Okay, well, I'll talk briefly. I don't have that much time already. I think we are running a little late. Why should we care about standards? I'll give you some history of it. And ultimately, really, where do you come in? That's really what we'll talk about. I don't think we'll have time to go into what other organizations are doing. In fact, we won't go into what any organizations are doing, really. We'll just make a case that it's good for people to actually participate in standards development. That's the crux of this. So let's see, why standards? And if you notice, there are 2 kind of organizations featured here. The first is ASME. And this is, again, it's US based because a lot of the actual formalized standards were started in the US, except for certain other things which we'll go into in a bit. Between about the 5 years that you see there, 1898 to 1903, more than 1,000 people died in boiler explosions. So that is one of the motivations for ASME to come into being, to develop standards for design and testing of boilers. Interesting, where I live in Hartford, there is a Hartford Steam and Boiler, which is still continuing the legacy of actually ensuring people against boiler. And well, they've diversified, but that's how they started. So the second example is in 1904, there was the Great Baltimore Fire. And it had a devastating effect. It ruined a lot of a huge part of the city and resulted in the loss of many, many businesses. One of the problems was the reason why it didn't get extinguished that quickly, even though fire engines from all neighboring areas came, was because US at that time had different threads on the fire hydrants. So even though they had the equipment, they had the hoses, they couldn't actually attach it to the fire hydrants. So the National Bureau of Standards, NBS, which was actually established 3 years earlier, started working on standardizing these dimensions. That's an interesting sort of history of why standards are so important. The previous example as well as this. Interestingly, even though you see here that what was a fire hydrant in 1904 is sort of looks like this now, today, in different parts of the US, the threads are still not the same. So fire engines actually take couplers with them to join, to be able to use their hoses. So that's an interesting little tidbit. But that's kind of the modern reason. I was looking at Wikipedia to see what was the first standard according to ANSI, which is a standards making organization. What is the one of the first standards was not even human; it was pre-human. The Oldowan in Tanzania settlements. They had a way of actually making tools. These were pre-human sort of Homo erectus or Homo something else. No, it's Hibinus or something like that. 2.6 million years ago. And the reason and the reason they said that this is actually a standard is because the same way of making tools, of shattering this, actually was passed down from a generation to uh,
Just a quick check. Is it only me who is missing the audio?
Even
we
I'm
talk
not
about
able to
today,
hear
where you have a
something like
standard of
Dr.
length.
Ravi,
Yes.
Dr. Ravi Rajmani, sorry to cut you. We couldn't hear you properly. Your audio was breaking sometimes
Oh,
in
I see.
between.
How is it? Is it better now?
This part was better. This sentence was better. Just before, just
I
1
will
minute
lean
before it was.
closer to the microphone. Maybe that'll help.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's
Okay.
try that.
And I'll talk a little slower. So weights and measures are where, because you have to trade with others, you start seeing actual standards. This, by the way, is an Egyptian measure of a cubit, which is really the distance between your elbow and your middle finger, probably of one of the pharaohs there. And that has been engraved into a actual measure. So this is the beginning. And you notice that all ancient peoples, Egyptians, Mesopotamians, Indus Valley, they all had some form of standards. And that's really the beginning of standardization because of trade. But for aerospace, which is what we are talking about, it's not just interoperability like the threads or a particular length or a measure. Yes, those things are there, especially with materials. That's a big part of standards for aerospace. But really, what is much more important for us is the process. And a lot of our standards are based on the process. A lot of you are probably involved in ARP 4754, the certification process. I heard some of that in the UAM discussion earlier, US discussion earlier. Certification is really the key, where the standards development organizations and the regulators get together and develop guidance. But there is more to it than just the design and certification. We talked, I heard a lot of talk about type certification in India, etc., for drones. It is a lot more than that. It is, and I am really working on this a lot more than on the design and certification of design of the product, the process, and the operators. There is also the instructions for continued airworthiness. In other words, how do you get a certified product to continue to operate through its life cycle? That is really the key, which we don't, we really don't focus on that much. We are much more interested in the design. I think this is just as important. And one of the ways that the world regulators have figured it out is through this whole process called the Maintenance Review Board, which is this thing in the middle. The authorities are involved, the operators are involved, and the OEMs and the suppliers, and they come through and get this work done through what is a standardized way of maintaining aircraft, and that is the MSG process. I don't have time to go into details, but that's basically something that is just as important, in my opinion, probably even more so than the initial certification and the product process certification. So all I need to say is every aspect of aviation, current and future, will need standardization. And you can see some of these autonomous vehicles here, or well, autonomous and eVTOL and other vehicles, and they'll all have to go through standardization. I suspect that that will be one of the reasons that their entry into service will take much longer than all of these people believe that it will. The main part of the talk is this thing. Why should you care and why should you get into standards? You are setting the standards for the industry. That is so important, and it is actually, I won't talk about, I've been in this game for a long time. So a lot of these things come naturally to me. Talk to people like Ritesh, who's from FAA, who actually works with us on standards. Talk to people like Ravi Kumar, who's he's the ex, I guess the previous chair of the G31 Committee on Digital Standards for Aerospace. So talk to these people. They are the ones who have actually benefited from this. I can tell you that it is really important. You learn from the world's experts at a level you will not get in any textbook. You get to meet some of the most experienced engineers in the world in your specific field. Obviously, it's specific to what you're working on. And this is really important for your companies. You get first dibs at incorporating these standards in your products. I know personally companies that have actually benefited from this. They have sent engineers to work on standards making organizations. They write the standards. Their companies actually get to work on it first or use those standards first. Now, it is a pre-competitive landscape, so it is not unfair. If your competitor had sent their engineers to work on the standards, they would have got just the same advantages as you. So it is not, we're not playing any unfair games here. It's just something that comes naturally. And it gives you opportunities for leadership positions. Like I said, Ravi Kumar from Infosys has became a chair of one of the committees, international committees. It asked him about what a great leadership opportunity that was. But doing this as a volunteer, you have to convince your management to support this. I mean, none of us has the money to actually support this on our own, unless you are a consultant. Travel may be an issue for some companies. It is changing to some extent with virtual meetings, but people do like to meet each other and talk, and you get a lot more work done. So there is that issue. Management is always skeptical of this. I think Dr. Omkar also mentioned that. Management does not like to see people wasting their time on overhead activities. But if you can convince them that it is actually to the benefit of the company down the road, then it will be a benefit for you as well as your company. Now, SAE and other standards development organizations can help ease the way. They can write letters, they can explain why it's an important thing, but it's really your motivation and your perseverance that's going to come. So with that, I'll stop and I'll take some questions if we have any time, Satish.
Nice, excellent, Dr. Ravi. Thank you for the details and then showing both pros and challenges, associated, when somebody starts thinking about, okay, how could I contribute, right? So to the standards. So let me see if we have any specific questions.
Ritesh has been texting like crazy on the chat box. You should talk to Ritesh as well. He has a lot of experience in this area.
Right. I don't see any specific questions coming from audience.
Well, I have a couple of minutes. Why don't I turn it over to Ravi Kumar and ask him to share his experience?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. Dr. Ravi Kumar.
I think you think you could escape, Ravi?
Thank you, Ray. No, you have summarized it very well. Definitely, I agree with what Ravi mentioned. In fact, he's the one who has introduced me to the HM1. Okay, in the initial years, I had some starting problem, I could not spend that much time. But later, I realized how important is it, and also how valuable it is. Interacting with some of these stalwarts, probably you might have dreamt in your dreams, but sitting across the table and then discussing with them, it's a great opportunity, great motivation. In fact, that is the reason I thought each one of you should be part of one or the other. It's a great way to build competency in you, and also uh, build the connects, the ecosystem connects, which are very, very important. All those people are like-minded people. Okay, so when you discuss with them, you get a lot of value out of it. Okay, and at the end of the day, as an engineer, we all might have done certain things to make money, but we also need to contribute back to the society. And this is one way to contribute back to the society, and great professional satisfaction that we all get. Okay, those are the few words from my side. Thank you, Ravi, for introducing me to SAE. I owe to you. Thank you.
You're
So
most
Dr.
welcome,
Ravi,
and you've done a great job, Ravi. We like everything you have done.
right. So Dr. Ravi and Dr. Ravi, we have, and we also have Ravi Shankar here.
That's
So,
right.
so just
This is a panel
just
only of Ravis. So, Satish, you may
looks
have
like
to actually leave this very quickly.
looks like I'm the admin out here. So, so one quick question, to all of you, are any one of you. So now you actually contribute a lot, and you actually had seen benefits of doing this, either in terms of you getting into the standards, or you also giving back to the society, right, to the fraternity. But there are many youngsters in this call, right? So who just started their career, or maybe less than around 5, 15 years, 5, 10, 15 years kind of thing. So if I have to just ask you one quick question, right? We are also out of time, but one quick question: when you started contributing to these standards, right? So what was your motivation? Why did you do that? Why did you get into that path?
Good question. And just like the people you talked about, I had no idea. And this is the key. My manager at that time was looking around for people who could substitute for him. So took me along with him to the first SAE E32 meeting. E32 is propulsion health management. I'm a propulsion guy. I'm a jet engines guy. So he took me with him to that, and it's for health management, and that's sort of the thing that we were doing at Pratt and Whitney at that time. He took me along with him. That was in 2003, before a lot of the people on this call might have been born. So, and that's when it started. It was happenstance, but I liked it. I liked the people that I was interacting with. And the other thing that I did not say explicitly is you meet people who could be your next boss. In other words, if you, I didn't want to say it because one of the reasons that managers don't want to see their people go is because you might actually lose them. But that's the stupidest way to curtail somebody.
Yep.
You actually help everybody, including the industry, your employees, as well as yourself, if you encourage people to go out and talk about these things and contribute to activities like this.
Agree.
Sorry
Agree.
about that.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how it was. It was pure luck, Satish.
Sure. Yeah, but then I think since then it's a long journey, right?
Yeah,
Giving
yeah. I mean,
more and more, right? So
I've been completely engaged for the last almost 20 years now in this.
right. Excellent. Excellent. Dr. Ravi, anything that you want to add? Or Ravi Shankar, anything that you would like to add? Okay.
I was on mute. Yeah, I think that was a great question, Satish, from your side as to how you can encourage, people in the industry to come forward and contribute. It's essentially, in my view, I think people do it because they have a passion to contribute to the industry beyond, working inside a company. And it helps build networks. It gives you a sense of, achievement and joy.